2019 sure was a year that happened, and it was, put it in the simplest of terms, was a different time for me, to say the least. But you know what? I don't feel like talking about how 2019 went for me. Let's talk about something else. Something a little more superfluous, but something still enjoyable to myself. Let's talk about video games. How's it going? My name's Rambling Abyss, and welcome to my worst to best games I played in 2019. It's games I played in 2019, not games that came out in 2019, because, well, if it was just games that came out in 2019, this list would be relatively short, and I wanted this video to actually have some sort of length to it. So, let's start off on the worst note, right? Mark this as the only game I played last year to genuinely piss me off in any capacity. At first, I was hopeful with this one. It had a pretty good setup for a mystery story, and you know what? It was fine at first. I mean, the protagonist, Max, was an asshole that made Holden Caulfield seem like a good person, but, you know, I tried to enjoy it. But as this thriller unraveled itself more and more, I just got more and more frustrated with its poorly thought out story. Like, my god, is the only good idea they had was the fucking opening and didn't know how to do anything else? I mean, yeah, I get it. There's supposed to be multiple endings, but you know what? What's a shitty move to do? Fucking sidelining the person to the bittersweet ending, aka the fucking worst ending. And you have no idea how awful the climax of this fucking game is. And really, it just, like, it amazes me how poorly put together this thing was. At least with its story. Everything else was there and existed, but in this game, this gets my worst game of the year just on the virtue that I was left upset when I was done with it. And that is nothing no other game this year has managed to do. And that's the only amount of praise this piece of shit's gonna get from me. I remember a long, long time ago. It was on some kind of show on G4 or something when I first saw this. And I thought to myself when I saw it was, that looks different. And I never gave it another thought for years. And then years later, I found a copy of it at a retro game store and vaguely remembered what it was. And I remember it was an odd game. But you know, it's pretty obvious that given its position above the worst game that I don't think highly of it. I can see this game has an interesting art style and has some decent tunes. And, well, that's where all the niceties end, however. At the back of the box, it claims that during E3 it was called innovative. And you know what? The only thing innovative about this are how bad the controls are and how terribly thought out the bosses are. So, I'm just going to pretend this was just one of Treasure's rare flukes. Is it controversial to say that Dragon's Lair is bad, and Dragon's Lair 2 is bad, and that Space Ace is bad? I mean, yeah, I get it. I'm late to the party on this whole remark, but, you know, hey, I've never been one to be topical, so. Anyway, this grandpa of QuickTime Events is a well-animated game. Don Bluth and pals are quite the talented bunch of animators. Shame that talent didn't translate into game design, and, well, even a bigger shame that even after 3 games, they didn't quite seem to figure it out. Hope that movie comes out so at least Dragon's Lair has something good to its name.
Just enough to pass.
You know, I kind of remember playing the original Homefront at some point, and my vague memories are telling me that it was a unimpressive COD clone. And, you know, does its sequel do anything to make it something more? It tried. It barely passed, but it sure tried. I mean, they had to patch the game from being bad to mediocre, and thankfully I didn't have to suffer through the bad version. Yeah, but it still gets curb stomped by COD at its worst, honestly.
Just enough to pass.
I have mixed feelings about this one. It's not a bad game, really. It's a well put together game, but so much about it frustrates the shit out of me where it's like, should I bother with it anymore? I'm having a hard time bothering with it. It's interesting, to say the least. And it's not like Stretch Panic where it's interesting in a bad way. This is interesting in like a more positive light. Like I'd say they tried, but their best isn't that great. I'd say from a mechanical standpoint, Okaga is very the bare minimum. That's how I'd probably best describe Okaga at the end of it all. It is the bare minimum for what an RPG is, and it expects you to be invested in its writing enough to carry you the entire game, and I honestly I don't think it can. It is a game where I believe that it tried, but it didn't do anything enough interesting to be really worth it. Because I mean, there are way better RPGs on PS2 to play than Okaga, you know.
Just enough to pass.
I'm not against walking simulators. I'm not against more story-focused games. No, I have a problem with that at all. Choosing to focus more on story than gameplay is a solid choice to make when it comes to making games. But keep in mind, though, that your story matters a whole lot more in this scenario because it is the main meat of the game, and, well, how Observer handles it does an okay job at best, you know? I mean, I started the game, and I got to the credits without me really thinking about dropping it, so, you know, it did that much, but it's not something I would say is, well, worth it. Honestly, I mean, how to describe it? I would best describe this game as an art piece. It's not a masterpiece you'd find in a museum. No, it's a piece that you would find at a more lower end art show, you know, with smaller crowds, you know. It looks nice. It has some level of symbolism to it to make you think more, but nothing about it is really groundbreaking. It's enjoyable for those who like this type of stuff, but if you don't like it, well, it's not going to convince you at all. And, well, it's a little bit unconvinced.
Just enough to pass.
This was a pretty alright adventure game. The art direction was nice and spooky, and, you know, everything was nice and creepy and shit. Its puzzles kind of weren't very challenging and were more on, did you click on everything worth a damn? And, were you paying attention on what needs to be done? You know, its story is pretty okay too. It gets to A to B without no grumbles, but I will say the twists are kind of, you can kind of see them coming from far away, and even the more thought out twists are just, you know, there. I think another issue I have with it is that I think there was one chapter where localization was kind of clunky, but you can't really blame them too much because it was like heavily based around Japanese wordplay, and you know, it gives you the feeling that these guys never thought that their game would come stateside, so you really can't blame the devs for that too much. I think ARCs could have done a better job with, you know, putting it to English, but, you know, hey, whatever. Guides are your friends, even in more modern adventure games, it seems.
Just enough to pass.
This artsy-fartsy game blew my expectations. Wait, now, I did not come into this with the highest of opinion. I thought this was just going to be an artsy game without much to it. But thankfully, the game had the decency of pulling off its mechanics and making challenging enough puzzles to stay off boredom. I mean, the story, it's what you expect and exists. It's there, but, you know, I didn't have a bad time with this one. Not at all.
Just enough to pass.
You know, this would have been better off as either like a storybook or animated short, because gameplay-wise, this game really isn't worth much of anything. Like, the biggest high points to it is that it has very creative, pretty art, and the story is a very good fairy tale style story that does its moral well. And I, honest to God, can't really recommend this to people, even as a passing interest, because really, you might as well just watch it off YouTube, because it's a little better experience that way.
Just enough to pass.
I never grew up playing Rare's games during their heyday. In fact, I didn't know Banjo existed until, you know, Let's Plays. And when they were new in 2008. I could say Star Fox Adventure is a childhood game of mine, but I'm not going to here to sing its praises. Do I find it as bad as many lead it out to be? No. I enjoyed myself during my playthrough. Yes, it's a bit of a mess in some areas, and yes, it's Zelda done not as good. But the main reason why people are so hard on it is because it was Rare's last game with Nintendo, and considering what came before and after, I can understand why people don't like it as much. But at the end of the day, Star Fox Adventure's greatest crime was being okay.
Just enough to pass.
Yeah, I enjoyed Sonic Forces. Do you want to fight about it? I'm a genuine Sonic the Hedgehog fan, and I will tell you this right now. There are way worse Sonic games than this one. So much worse than this one. And, oh God. What I call a good Sonic game, though? I wouldn't place it close to his best, that's for sure. I mean, it has a lot of cool ideas it does a relatively okay job with. I mean, I wasn't miserable while playing it, and sometimes I had fun. I mean, I'd say the worst thing about this is that it had to be a follow-up to Mania, honestly. Oh, okay, I'll say this now. As a whole package, Caligula isn't very good. Yet somehow, I like it. Despite having rather good character art, its character models are fucking ugly, and the environments are truly inspiring and how bland and uninteresting it are. And, you know, despite having seasoned Vocaloid composers making its soundtrack, it's all worthless background noise, and oh my god, let's not forget its poor excuse for a gameplay that nearly puts me to sleep, and yet I still liked it! Why? Because this has some of the best character writing and voice work I've seen in a long time, and you have no idea how much those two elements carry this entire game. And yet it is the biggest shame in the goddamn world that these great characters are trapped in such a mediocre game. Such a shame. You know, I never really understood what Kojima's deal was. I mean, yeah, I've heard the stories. He's a genius, he's a hack, and you know, that's something I don't know. It did spark my interest to see where I fell onto this fight, and after finished Death Stranding, I can say with confidence that he's an acquired taste, to say the least. And as for gameplay, it does a quite, solid job for what it wanted to do. Is it earth-shattering? Not really. I mean, its gameplay loop is strong enough that it never felt like a chore to play. Also, this game is really, really pretty. Like, I mistake the opening for real-life footage. It was that good, and it's insane that it remains this consistently pretty for the entire game. Yeah, pretty good. Okay, let's talk about the story for a bit. I'll put it this way. It firmly grasps a lead pipe, and then it smashes its themes into the back of your head repeatedly, over and over. And then, as you reach the ending, its beatings feel the need to explain itself directly, despite the fact that you've most likely figured out most of what it's trying to say by the end of it. I was firmly sick of Kojima's bullshit by the time the second credits were rolling. Although the final delivery did tear me up a bit. But you know what? I see this game as a bridge. A bridge to give him a solid ground to stand on. A bridge to leap forward. A bridge? This game is a bridge towards the future! Sometimes a well-made game is all you need to have a fun time. Yep. This used to be my go-to version of Tetris for a very long time. It was good enough to scratch my itch for a little while, I mean, come on, this is fucking Tetris. How can you fuck this up? But the time has come to leave this version to rest. Why? Because I found a way better version of Tetris to play. What do you want me to say, Morty? This is a pretty good game that takes its main gimmick and makes a fun game out of it. Could ask more from a game, Morty. Couldn't ask more for a game. You know what's funny? I wrote out the entire script for this, And yet, when I try to talk about Prey, I always find myself being meaner than I intended it to be. Because, I mean, it's not a bad game. It's a well-made game. They did a good job putting it together. But I always find myself kind of giving it, like, backhanded compliments over and over. Like, I try to talk about a good element, but I have more negatives to say about it. And it's kind of nuts for me to really think that, because honestly, I had fun with it. Like, by the time I had finished the game, I was satisfied with my experience. I had an enjoyable time. You know, the developer, what their names are, pop on screen or something. They did a solid job. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why I'm so negative about Prey, even though I enjoyed Prey. I'll straighten out those feelings someday, maybe. This is just a very solid action RPG. I mean, yeah, it has its fair share of problems. It feels like it's a discount Tales game. It's one of the most cliched JRPGs I've played in a very, very long time. But the boys at MediaVision did a stellar job with what they had, and they made an overall fun game with it. This is not a low-effort budget game. This is a high-effort budget game. And I would recommend this game to people to play, honestly, if you're fans of action RPGs. But I will say, get it on a discount. I feared for the future of Mario spinoffs for a very, very long time. For years, it seemed like Mario was never going to do anything ever interesting again. And nothing was really helped me to prove that wrong. And then Odyssey came out, and it reminded people, oh yeah, Mario can be fun and interesting. Sadly, though, Aces really doesn't embrace the full Odyssey style. It does at least toss aside the sterileness that has plagued the franchise for a long time now. It tried to do things a bit differently, and it did a good job of it. I will say that the focus on story mode was a bit of a mistake. Where this game shines the best is in its online play, and this is coming from someone who really doesn't give online play a second look much of the time. Unfortunately, trying to get an online match is going to be harder than it seems. The only way I was able to get a match was through the tournament mode, and well, what sucks even more is that I don't see it getting better. I honest to God don't see the online improving anytime soon, but you know what? Here's hoping that Camelot got more of that good stuff cooking, because I sure want a taste. Halo 1 is a classic. Does it still hold the test of time like Bungie's other Halo titles? Well, fuck if I know. I'm extremely biased. I could still have fun with the OG version of Halo 1, even to this day. But, you know, the thing is that I didn't play the OG Xbox version. I played the Anniversary Remaster, and, well, the verdict is... Halo 1, but in HD? This game is a pretty faithful version of it in gameplay, at least. Although I say two of my biggest complaints are is that the cutscenes tend to be a bit uglier than the OG version, and that the auto-mixing can be pretty bad. But you know what? Overall, it's a pretty non-intrusive, solid experience to it. Though I'd say the expanded universe shit they added in wasn't all that interesting. Simplicity isn't a bad thing. It's often used as a complaint because it's used to describe something that is very, very one-dimensional, very easy to understand. But Baba With You uses its simplicity, I should say, to make the player think cleverly. The rules cannot be easier to understand, but to get to win the puzzle is a challenging experience. I will admit, I felt like a total dumbass when playing this game. I spent hours staring at the screen, figuring out, like, how do I get to win? But I will say, though, it was one of the most rewarding experiences to solve those puzzles. Like, I did this all by myself. I feel like a dumbass, but I feel smart. Even if I barely scratched the surface of what this game has to offer, I was satisfied with what I was able to solve. I have never been a mega fan of Pokemon. It's a series I enjoy coming back to once in a while, but I've never really properly engaged with it beyond the bare minimum. I only ever really trained a single team in any given playthrough, but you know what? For once, I decided to say, Well, I'm not going to catch them all, but let's catch a few more. Heck, even use a few Pokemon that I haven't used before in a given playthrough. And you know what? I ended up having a lot more fun this time around. In fact, going forward, I'm probably going to do this with other mainline Pokemon games. But to say I had a fun from start to finish would be a lie. It took me about half a year to go through this game, and it's mostly because it's really crazy how sluggish Pokemon Diamond is. Things never really run along fast enough to keep me more than an hour at a time, and even then I didn't want to look at it for a while. Only when I started to get close towards the end did I really start to get fun, and it engaged me more than that. But nonetheless, I'll say that this was a good time, and it's a solid 7 out of 10. There, I said it. The movement feels so good, homie! Zipping around like a total madman, blasting any fool who denies those sick tricks of speed, only to become a sick trick themselves. And man, oh man, the punk soundtrack just makes it feel all the better. I honestly was craving for a whole lot more when the credits hit around, but I was glad it ended when it did, though. Its humor kind of was not completely intolerable. It tried too hard to be wacky, but, hey, thankfully it had the decency to shut the fuck up during gameplay. For the most part. And yes, I would like a sequel to this. Get on it, Sunset. Insomniac. Sony. Fuck you. Also, Spider-Man 2 would be nice too, I guess. COD 4 is a shooter that is very near and dear to my heart. It helped really cement my love for the shooter genre alongside greats like Halo, Halo 2, Half-Life 2, stuff like that. And, it was kind of sucks though that my love for the franchise just sort of became estranged over the years. Since, I'm a single-player weirdo, and that's not what COD's all about, I guess. And, COD's campaigns haven't been all that great for a while now. And when I heard this remaster was actually good, I was shocked. Activision and all companies managed to pull it off, and of course, there are a large number of its own problems, but thankfully they're mostly out of the game's control, and after booting the game up and going through it unhardened, yep, it's still the game I know and love, and I honestly, God, couldn't ask more. Also, I didn't bother with the multiplayer. Again, single-player weirdo here. The Digimon fanboy in me had long since fallen into a deep, deep slumber. The Digimon anime kind of never was good again after Tamers, and I was severely disappointed by Tri, and the fact of the matter is that I was put to sleep by it made me never really want to bother with Digimon again for a while. Of course I've heard about, Digimon story, Cyber Sleuth. Hey, people talking about Digimon are good again, so I kept my ear open about it. I kept open-minded about it, like, yeah, I'll check around to it eventually. Something I say a lot. And after finally getting around to it, it really reminded to me why I love Digimon in the first place. And the craziest thing about it is that it's probably the most simple Digimon RPG you could fucking ask for, but it was done so great and so wonderfully in such a competent and fun way that, yeah, Digimon's great. It has always been great. And I'm so glad that my faith in the franchise has been restored because of this. I don't have faith in the anime. Never will again. The Digimon animes will never be good again. Toei's a fucking dead weight. But I think I'll keep checking out the games going forward. And you know what? I'm going to boot up Packer's memory when I can. Or get around to it eventually. Now, gamers, before we get into the games that I really liked this year, let's talk about the Fallen Brethren. The bros that couldn't make the long journey of me getting to the end of it. Let's pour it out for the homies. The games that didn't quite finish in 2019. Yeah, these two are bundled together because they suffer from the same unique problem of my copy just doesn't work. And really, I have nothing more to say about it, and, well, it sucks because this is like my second copy of Black Ops 2, man. just had a really miserable time playing this fucking game. Like, my eyes hurt, and my fucking head was killing just after 10 minutes of play, and I don't want to touch this game again. It was such sensory overload. My God, I hated playing this one. I'm gonna kiss all the pretty boys, I jokingly said to myself as I left GameStop with this in my hand. In the back of my head, I was justifying this purchase, saying that, I am not very familiar with ultimate visual novels. Maybe I could find a hidden gem among them if I give them a try. Unfortunately, for one reason or another, I wasn't quite up to finishing this game. Maybe it was because felt a little uncomfortable while playing it. Maybe it had to do something with my heteromale mindset. I don't know. Maybe subconsciously my brain was telling me to back off before I realized something about myself. And that defense worked for about maybe like a month. But, hey, I think I feel a whole lot more comfortable playing a game like this now. So maybe I'll try Ultimate Visual Novels another day. Free-to-play games are probably the only type of games that it's to be expected for it to be dropped. But I didn't drop this out of the usual burnout you get from one of these. No, I dropped it because I just had my fill of it. One pleasant night of playing it with a good friend after a really rough day is all I needed out of it. Blinks isn't a bad game. In fact, I would call it a very good game. The big reason why this was dropped was simply because time wasn't on its side. This was the final game that I played in 2019, and, well, let's just say the final boss gauntlet really handed me my ass plenty. And honestly, with the new year coming up, and with this project kind of coming on the horizon, I felt like I decided to just simply drop it out of just necessity of my own sanity. Blinks is a game that I will be more than happy to one day to return to and finish. And you know what? I'll give this a ranking of the best dropped game of 2019. Splatoon is tight. Nintendo did so many things right with this series, and it's absolutely insane to me how well this thing came together. Its character design and aesthetic is top notch. It has a slamming soundtrack that has a lot of great tunes to it. And oh my god, and it's also a multiplayer focused game where I can lose hours and hours of my time to this game, and it is a fun time. And you know what? Even 2 years later, it's still a great game, and I cannot wait for more Splatoon. Also, Honor was fucking robbed! Your loyalty to that Red Queen will doom us all! When it comes to clones, rarely do they ever get any close to succeeding or sitting even close up next to what they're trying to copy. Saints Row is among the rare few, that manages to actually surpass what it's trying to copy. And my god, did Saints Row 2 really hammer in that fact for me. Because Saints Row 2 is the most fun I've had in an open world game in a very, very long time. It is mindless fun in all the right ways, and honestly, I want more people. If you're going to clone a game, use Saints Row as an example of what direction you should take it. Just maybe not be as direct, and maybe stop after 3, because after 3, Saints Row stopped being worth a shit. Rip and tear. Rip and tear. Rip and tear until it's done! Doom has always been the king. A dumbass millennial like me doesn't need to tell you this. One dive into the still active world of Doom Walls will show you the power of its legacy, and while the talent that made those legends had long since left id, the spirit that made it happen still haunt those halls. This was a great throwback to what made shooters great back in the day, with some more modern twist thrown on it, and honest to God, it was so much fun to rip and tear for all eternity. Returns 3D is a challenging and fun as hell game. Showing you don't need crazy gimmicks to make a damn good platformer. You just need to take your ideas and do them excellently. And you know what? The guys at Monster Games did a great job of putting retro stellar game on the 3DS. I should get around to playing Tropical Freeze then, huh? Man, it's probably really freaking good too. It's a dark day in history when a good version of Tetris is released upon the world. And what the craziest thing about this version is? It has the simplest twist. What if Tetris was a battle royale? What starts off as a simple match blurs into hour-long sessions. I have lost about 34 hours of my life to this game. I find myself needing to feel like I need to break a finger or two to stop playing. Then again, Tetris is a fantastic puzzle game on its own, and it's always a miracle when a bad version exists. And, I've only played the default player versus player mode, so, that's definitely something interesting. And what's even crazier is there's even more modes for me to play. And honest to God, I see myself playing this game a lot, even in 2020. I always had an interest in this series. Why it took me so long to finally get around to it is a mystery to me. I mean, it seems like the answer is obvious if you know what my bullshit is, but who knows? Let's not talk about that. What I wanted to talk about is how fantastic the first 3 Ace Attorney games are. They are... Oh, God. These are like an amazing batch of fucking mystery games that was just a thrill from start to finish to play. And I will say this now. I love all the characters. Like, Phoenix is great. Maya is great. All the prosecutors are great. Edgeworth, Francesca, and Godot especially. Oh, God. Godot. It was fantastic to go through. And I was engrossed by the mystery from start to finish. The fact is that I was so eager to jump in to Justice for All after finishing the first Ace Attorney game was. Just shows you how much quality there was. I had to force myself to not play Trials and Tribulation after finishing Justice for All. That's how much of a great time I had. I mean, I have the rest of the Ace Attorney series in my ownership because I have a unique problem. But, yeah, hey, I'll get to those when the time comes. I don't think it's fair to put Halo 2 on this list. It's a lot of the games on this list are games that I have not played before. And Halo 2 is a game that I've played a million times. And it's also one of my all-time favorite games ever. So, it kind of already had an unfair advantage over the others. But I still put it on this list anyway because this list is games I played, and Halo 2 just happened to be one of them. I guess the big reason why I played it is because I think some point last year I bought the limited edition of Halo 2 and I felt like, time to go through Halo again. Whatever. I'm not ashamed to admit that I greatly enjoyed Tetsuya Nomura's wild fanfiction Disney ride. I have always enjoyed this series, even with the less stellar entries. I legitimately care about this story and its characters. It gave me feelings that I liked having about. Yes, I was grinning like an idiot the whole time while I played this. Yes, the world selection hits my nostalgia a whole lot harder than past entries, and oh man, the Keyblade Graveyard was just yes. All kinds of yes, and a great ender to the Dark Seeker saga. God, I love Kingdom Hearts! Ha ha! I'm aware of Falcom's reputation, and, I never really got around to trying out their stuff. And this is despite the fact that RPGs are pretty much one of my all-time favorite genres. And after finishing Cold to them, I can say for sure that their reputation is well earned. This is a fantastic RPG that does everything right, from the story to the gameplay, and the music is just as good. I struggled to put this thing down for like 2 weeks straight, and honestly, I can't wait to check out their other stuff now, especially Cold Steel 2 and 3. I should honestly God shame myself for not trying it out sooner. Smash Ultimate brings the series back to what made the series so great. And it brings it back in the most simple way possible. Classic mode is good again. The Spirit mode's a fantastic time. The fact that all the DLC fighters so far have been quality is amazing. And I honestly got high hopes for Season 2, even if the selection won't be as good. And I will say this now. I am not putting this goddamn game down until I am done with everything. And it seems to me it's not going to be done for a while.
Reach for my hand, I'll soar away into the dawn. Oh, I wish I could stay here and cherish hearts in peaceful days. I fear the edge of dawn, knowing time betrays. Faint lights pass through colored glass in this beloved place. Silver shines, the world dines, a smile on each face. As joy surrounds, gun border bounds, and I can feel them breaking free. For just this moment lost in time, I am finally me. Yet still I hide behind this mask that I have become. My blackened heart, scorched by flames, a force I can't run from.
I had so many doubts for Fire Emblem's future. I feared one of my favorite game series would never be great again, and going into Three Houses, those feelings were still very strong. I felt like I bought the game out of obligation more than anything else, because I figured at least the game would be fun to play. But as I played through the Blue Line's path, something unexpected happened. I when the time skip happened and the dude wasn't there, I found myself missing them. Heck, even though Dimitri was there, I missed him too. It was the craziest feeling in the world to me because I ended up caring a lot about the Blue Lions before it was over. Like Felix, Sylvain, Ingrid, Mercedes, Antoinette, Ash, all of the Blue Lions, I had fallen in love with them in a way that I never thought would ever happen again. This was the first time since Path of Radiance that I've really loved a Fire Emblem cast like this before, and it's absolutely insane to me. I legitimately teared up through some of these supports. It is insane to me to think. And I never thought this would ever happen to me with the series again. But you know what? It is the greatest feeling in the world when something you love is good again. And now I can be excited about another Fire Emblem game again. And that's just fantastic. This game can't seem to leave my head. Despite having finished it months ago, I still remember it. It was like yesterday I finished it. I still remember a lot of the small little details about it, and it's nuts to me. This rarely ever happens to me when it comes to games where it's like, I have something so good, my brain doesn't want to forget about it. Like, when I first played it, like, I would lose weeks upon weeks of my time to this game. And I was just so captivated by the tales of Rock'em Jim, I could not put it down in any way. The story is handled brilliantly. It has a stellar cast that just, oh god, man, it was just great. And the soundtrack, my god, the soundtrack is so good. I'm still listening it to this day. You know, though I do recommend you do get the voice acting patch from 7th Mod, because the voice acting is some of the best I have ever heard. Oh my god, is the voice acting so fucking good. Even the randos give it their best. And by the way, this game almost goes for 200 hours and all the voice work is fantastic, is nuts. It takes this game from a 10 to a goddamn 11. Also, this patch makes the game in a resolution for more modern PCs. This is my game of the year because it is the one game that stuck with me the longest, and it will never, ever leave me. And quite frankly, I couldn't have it any other way. And with that, the channel reboot has officially started, and it is ready to rock and roll. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. It's the first time I really made a video of this kind before, so you know, hey, it may not be the best, but I gave it my all. and hopefully it has interested you enough to keep going, because more content's to come, because the only other content on the channel right now is a bunch of my old crap, and I don't recommend watching it. So hey, stick around. Then there's gonna be more content to come along. None of it's really planned, other than I'm just gonna make stuff. So hey, stick around. Don't worry, content's coming. When it's gonna come out, I just don't know. It's gonna be a done when it's done type of deal.